listener production.
Hey, Sasha Barbagat with you for our second episode on autism and our colleague Tom Denham's journey of discovery to find out if, as he has suspected for most of his life, he's on the spectrum. We know autism is so in the zeitgeist right now. It's being talked about in the media, in movies, on TV. It's not new. It's a regular topic of conversation. But we're bringing you this series so you can be a fly on the wall through Tom's assessment, diagnosis and reaction to see exactly what it's like to go through the process of seeking a diagnosis as an adult. In this 5-part special series of The Briefing, we've teamed up with Autism Awareness Australia and the Brain and Mind Centre at the University of Sydney to walk alongside Thomas as he discovers what the autism spectrum is and if and where he fits on it. In this episode, we travelled to Professor Adam Guastella's clinic at the Brain and Mind Centre to sit in for Tom's assessment and to learn how and why neurodiversity is so varied and how one who suspects they are autistic navigates that complexity. We begin our journey in the car on our way to the clinic. We're on our way. How are you feeling?
There's a bit of excitement, there's a bit of nerves. I think I'm about to learn a lot more about myself that I didn't know. Fear is not the right word, but I think finding out more about that will be fulfilling for sure.
So what are you hoping will come out of today? Or are you kind of going in no expectations, just prepared to kind of learn what you learn?
I think I'm being very just open about it today. Whatever comes out on the other side, I guess we'll see what that looks like.
This might sound like a strange question, but do you think you'll be disappointed if you don't get... I mean, you suspect something, right? And there's a reason we're going on this journey with you.
Sure.
Do you think you'll be disappointed if it's not a affirmative diagnosis?
I don't think so. I think knowing that I've been able to go on that journey because I've got a lot of friends who are neurodivergent as well, I think it will give me a sense of understanding what it is like, not just for myself, but for anybody going on this journey. So I think that part of it is exciting.
And I think one of the other things that we're learning at the moment is that it's hard to get a diagnosis. It's hard to find the right people to tell your story to, for them to diagnose you. How lucky, I suppose, do you feel to be able to do this? I mean, you're not young, you're not old, but, you know, do you feel like there's a sense of this has been a really long time coming? You feel lucky to finally be doing it?
Oh, I'm over the moon about it, and I think better late than never. But I think at the same time, it's one of those things that kind of feels like this is the right time. I think the right time in my life where I think in the world that we live in, I'm asking who am I and what am I and what are the things neurologically that make me. So I'm thinking about all those things.
All right, well, we're on our way. Shouldn't be too much longer.
Sounds good.
Tom sat with Professor Guastella and his team to do an almost 2-hour assessment. And we wanted to protect Tom's privacy, so we didn't record all of it. It is a very complex and personal discussion, but we'll hear a few minutes to give you some idea of the depth of the analysis. Dr. Guastella began by asking Tom what made him think he was on the spectrum.
I think there are certain characteristics that I picked up over time and that align with neurodiversity, and I've seen elements of that in myself, and I've gone, well, maybe I do kind of fit somewhere in that criteria, and more I've thought about that in myself, and I've sat on it for long enough where I've kind of wanted answers for that. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's what brings us here today. I used to work with a lot of people on the spectrum in education, and I think from reflection of that time and from reflection of spending a lot of time on my own, I kind of thought maybe there's something that's a little bit neurologically different about myself. Right. Yeah.
What sort of things did you notice during that time?
I think I noticed I behaved probably a bit differently to what other people would. I've always kind of been a little bit eccentric in my own quirky way, but I think when you're alone in that period of time, you notice those things more.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really difficult time because a lot of isolation and a lot of time by yourself during that period. What were some of the I guess, eccentricities that you started to notice?
I guess trying to understand my own emotions and modulating those, and I guess externalizing those as well. I think at that time was quite interesting because I think I was externalizing feelings and emotions I'd never really externalized before. I think that there was a moment in a circumstance where I saw a person for the first time in a long time, and I just laughed because I didn't know how else to respond.
Right.
yeah, and it almost felt like a loose connection almost, or something like that.
So when you talk about that, about modulating emotions, you were seeing emotions come out that don't normally come out, or they were stronger, or you just weren't sure why you were having those emotions?
I think everything that you said, and I think they were definitely heightened to some degree as well. I think because of those circumstances. But I think it made me think about emotions when I was a kid, and how I behaved maybe differently as well, compared to other kids as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What sort of things what age are we going back to in your memories?
Oh, like probably as young as 5. Like, I struggled to talk for a long time. I had speech therapy. I struggled to use the muscles in my mouth to really talk properly.
Yeah.
So I think through learning of that, I learned how to do that properly, but that took time.
Yeah.
So I think those late development stages, I think I do think about and go, is there more there that I don't know about?
And so, like, in those early days in primary school,
Yeah.
interacting with other kids and sort of in the back and forth, how did you find making friends and participating in groups and things like that?
I think in primary school I was very quick to initiate myself and go, hey, my name's Tom, and join in. But I think as I probably accelerated through to high school, I think it was definitely a bit harder. I think I definitely drifted for a bit until I really found my tribe.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting how I really kind of took that deliberate time to just do my own thing and kind of go from group to group for a while, and then eventually found a group probably a lot later than what other people would.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a period where you felt like you're a bit of a drifter, or social, or sort of not. You didn't really have it, as you put in your clan.
Yeah, definitely. Probably from that like year 8 to like year 10 kind of mark,
Right.
until I really kind of solidified somewhere.
And how did you find a clan?
I think it was just by energy. Like, I think I found myself in a group that was probably very unlikely, but it was just the connection of that group and those people that really made it.
Right. And what was that connection for you?
I think it was humour, definitely. I think kind of being on that same wavelength, and I think that kind of almost quite chill energy as well. No one felt like they needed to be sporty or anything like that.
Right.
I think because of maybe a bit of lack of coordination, I didn't really fit into that part of school.
Yeah.
But I think people who are into nerdy stuff, I think all kind of culminated together.
What sort of nerdy stuff was your group into?
Oh, like a lot of sci-fi, a lot of music, and a lot of gaming, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think we all kind of found that commonality of interest.
Could you give me an example of something you used as an entry point?
Yeah, like I'm definitely not a metalhead, but I think
Right.
the majority of the people in that group were metalheads.
Right.
So I go, sure, I'll listen to Metallica and give this a go, and use that as a way to kind of get it inaugurated into that group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And those guys that were into Metallica,
Yeah.
did they become good mates of yours?
Yeah, like some of them are still mates today, and I think it's just that's the icebreaker. And I think sometimes you just need that little thing to get over the line. Yeah.
Can I also ask romantic relationships?
Sure. Yeah.
We're getting a little bit personal now.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
How's the romance side of things been for you?
Oh, look, at the moment, I'm very casually dating. I don't feel it's strong enough of a drive that I want to pursue a relationship, but there have been stages where I considered romance very deeply. I almost got married once.
Oh, right.
that was a wild endeavour. But I think it was at a time where I realised, well, maybe my priorities are elsewhere, and I didn't want that person to tie themselves down whilst we're doing the long distance thing.
Right.
So I kind of went my own way, and they went their own way as well.
What are the things that worked in that relationship?
I think energy is a big one, and I think it's funny, like you know if there's something there or not, and I think that there's almost like a switch that kind of flicks me. If I know something's there, I just kind of switch off and go, okay, this isn't going to work. That's
And what didn't work then? What, generally speaking?
Yeah. I think probably the intensity of it. I think knowing that it was going to be something serious. I think there's the subconscious level, because both my parents have had history of divorce and remarrying. There's the fear of history repeating, and you don't want to do that. So I feel like that was something I didn't want to risk at that time in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you said you've been dating recently.
Yeah, very on and off.
And
yeah.
what are you sort of looking for in a partner now?
I think it's not a particular focus, but I think it's someone who has that energy, so someone who has that connectivity, someone who I guess accepts you for who you are, and likewise you accept them.
Yeah.
So I think whenever that comes, I think I'll just know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so are there signals that indicate for you that the relationship's not going to work?
Yeah, I think that there is a sense of, like, I do appreciate a sense of worldliness and experience, and if that's not there, I kind of go, okay, like, we're going to be at very, very different levels. So I think if that's something that I recognise that's not there, I go, yeah, okay.
Okay. And what do you mean by worldliness and experience?
I think so someone who's gone out there and lived life and had previous relationships and been in different contexts and been around different people and have been out there a bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump back a little bit. You mentioned that you're sort of out there at school, and quite confident and able to sort of interact in primary school.
Sure. Yeah.
And then things sort of you sort of became a bit lost in between.
Sure.
Until you got to year 10. Is that right?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there anything that you noticed that was different for you and compared to other kids? Did you find any particular situations overwhelming or difficult to be in?
I think I said before, I definitely wasn't big on sport. So I think I would be very purposeful in going in school uniforms.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to play, and I'd go to the library or the art room and be much more comfortable in that kind of space.
Right.
So I think I kind of started myself away from that, and probably out of habit and behaviour, I just did things a little bit differently on that kind of basis.
Right. And
yeah.
what did you like about the library space?
It was quiet. There were books. I love reading. So I think I enjoy those more intellectual activities a lot more than physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the quiet do you find some noisy environments difficult sometimes?
I think I used to, but not really. I think I can easily go to a function or a party now and be okay with that. But I think it's just something that you learn to adapt to.
How have you adapted to it?
Probably working in noisy environments.
Right.
I worked in the kitchen for 3 years, and there's a lot of banging, crashing and things going on, and timers and buzzers going off. So I think environments like that make you work quickly.
Right.
So I think, exposure to those kinds of things.
Right.
Definitely.
And so if you worked in a kitchen environment now, you wouldn't be bothered by it?
I could easily do it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
And so going back again, I'm really interested in that primary school
Sure,
time.
yeah.
You didn't like sport as much. Do you think it was because of the performance aspects, or do you think there were other things involved in that?
Yeah, I think I had my own quirky interests that I used to preoccupy my time.
Right.
And I think that fulfilled me enough. Yeah.
What sort of interests? Kind of
I think it's a very neurodivergent thing coming out, but I love trains.
Right.
That's always been a lifelong hobby. I've drawn trains. I've worked on volunteering railways and things. So I think that's something that's kind of pioneered all the way through.
Right.
It's a little, I think, bizarre. I think for other kids in school to go, oh, you like this, and I think it's a thing that people try to poke at, and I think sometimes you do feel a bit of like, oh, why are they doing this? But I think with the interest kind of goes towards like they're old, they're majestic, they're like a moving machine. So I think that there is something, and there is a sense of logic about them that I do like.
You like to work out?
Yeah. I think that the fact that it operates in a certain way and that it runs to a timetable, I think that there is that logical part of me that goes that works well in the universe.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe if you can tell me a little about food or other sense, the feeling of clothing or textures. Do you have any, concerns with textures or?
I despise anklet socks for some reason.
Oh, really?
I think the idea of a sock coming up halfway up your ankle is the worst thing in the world.
And why is that? Is it the look or is it the feeling it gives you?
It's a feeling, knowing that it kind of cuts around where that bone is. I'm like, nah, that's not for me. Yeah. Same with I'm fine with myself brushing my teeth, but other people brushing their teeth is the worst sound in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is it about that?
Oh, it's something about it just spikes. It's like the equivalent of someone drawing their fingers down a chalkboard.
Right.
Something about it, just I don't know what it is, but it's always.
So how does that affect, like, you? If people are brushing their teeth around you, what do you have to do?
Oh, my skin crawls. I have to leave the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you have times where you just have to stay away from people when they do that, do you?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, like I've dated people who've, like, they've picked up on that and they've said, hey, watch this. I'm like, no. See you in 5 minutes.
Right.
That was Tom speaking with Professor Adam Guastella from Sydney University's Brain and Mind Centre. And that is all we have time for in this second episode of our What If I'm Autistic series. Make sure you join us tomorrow as we learn Tom's diagnosis when he hears whether or not he is on the autism spectrum. That's coming up tomorrow. Before you go, we would love it if you could share this ep with someone you think might like it. It really helps us keep doing the work we do here at The Briefing. You can also show your support on our socials, subscribe to our YouTube channel by searching Listener Newsroom. You can also follow us on TikTok, also at Listener Newsroom, or on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. And we'll be back in your feed with another ep tomorrow morning at 6. I'm Sasha Barbagat. See you then.